What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Keep It Techie channel. I'm Josh, and today we're diving into something super crucial for anyone running a server, and that's RAID configurations on Ubuntu. And what I want to do is cover the basics of RAID, explain the different types, and then jump into creating a RAID 1 and a RAID 5 setup. So whether you're a seasoned Linux pro or you're just starting out, there's something here for everyone. So let's get to it. All right, so let's kick things off with a quick overview of what RAID is. RAID stands for Redundant Array of Independent Disks, and it's a way to combine multiple hard drives into a single unit for performance improvements, redundancy, or for both. And this all depends on the type of RAID that you run. And there are several RAID levels, but today I want to focus on just two, which is RAID 1 and RAID 5. Now let me explain what both of those are. RAID 1, this is known as mirroring. You basically have two disks, and whatever data you write to one disk gets copied to the other. And with this setup, it's all about redundancy. So if one disk fails, you still got all your data on the other one. And it's perfect for situations where data integrity is crucial. Now RAID 5, this one's a little bit more complex. It requires at least 3 disks, and RAID 5 stripes the data across all the disks, but also stores parity information. And this parity is used to recover data if one of the disks fails. So you get both performance and redundancy with RAID 5, which is why it's the most popular. And so I think this is a great choice for many server setups. Now that we got the basics out the way, let's jump into the nitty-gritty of installing and configuring RAID on Ubuntu server. Before we move forward, I wanted to give a quick shout out to CIQ, the official partner of Rocky Linux. Rocky Linux is a Linux distribution that is intended to be a downstream complete binary compatible release using the Red Hat Enterprise Linux operating system source code. The project is led by Gregory Kurtzer, who was the founder of the CentOS project. So check out Rocky Linux at ciq.co. All right, so I'm connected to my Ubuntu server. This is 24.04. And let me show you guys how to list out the drives right fast. This is the first kind of step because you need to verify what those drive names are. And it's essentially a device name. So there's a command called list block, and this will list out all the drives that are connected to the system. And what we have is 3 for the RAID 1. We're just going to use 2 of them, but I created them all and attached them to this virtual machine so I could demonstrate the whole process. So we'll use these first 2 to create the RAID 1. When we get to the RAID 5, we will incorporate this other drive to create the RAID 5 because you need a minimum of 3 drives. And so what you're actually looking for, just so you know, you're looking for the device name, and it's basically VDB for the first one, VDC, VDD. Majority of the time when it's a physical drive, it'll start with S. It'll show SDA or SDB, SDC, which basically stands for SCSI. And so you want to make sure you're using the right device. And I already know that these 3 are the devices that we're going to use, but you want to run this command so you at least get the device names. That way, when you run the commands, you know exactly what to type. Now, on Ubuntu, there is a package that's already installed, but I'll go down and show you guys the package name in case you're using an older version of that still supported. It may not have this package installed. Majority of them do. This is like a very old package. I remember using this when I first learned Linux. I set up a RAID on a server that I was running. But the first thing you really want to do is run a update anytime you're installing anything, and this will check to see if there are any updates to the system at all, as well as refresh that repository just to verify everything is good to go, and that we can get the correct package when we run the install command. So if you run sudo apt install, and the package name is mdadm, and like I said, it's already installed. I'm gonna just run it. It'll say mdadm is already at its newest version, so we're good to go. If you got 24.04, this package should be on there, and I believe it's on 22 and 20. And so if like you use on 18 or something, I believe you may have to install it. I'm not 100% sure, but if you need to install it, that's how you install it. Now, let me show you guys another command, and that's fdisk. And you can type fdisk-l for list, and press enter, and that'll give you out the drive letters as well, the full drive letters. And right now it's saying permissions denied, but you can run it with sudo fdisk, and this will list out all the drives. I already know what they are. It's the B, C, and D. And it gives you a lot more information using fdisk, but it'll list them out in a more cleaner way. But let's go down and run list block again. So I always list block. That way I can see the drives right there, so we know what to type. Now, let me show you guys how to use the mdadm command. And if you want to learn about it, it's always good to look at the man page. So should be a man page for this. And so let's type it in and press enter. And there you go, manage MD devices, aka Linux software RAID. And just so you know, this is considered a software RAID, not a hardware RAID. And this is one thing I wanted to at least show you guys in the man page, all the different type of RAIDs you can run. So you can run a RAID 0, which is striping, RAID 1, which is mirroring, RAID 4, RAID 5, 6, and 10. It supports all of those. And then you do multipath, faulty, as well as containers. So that's all supported. Now, let's go down and quit that out. And let me show you guys how to create our RAID. Because there's one command to actually create the RAID itself. So all you have to do is, let me go down and clear right fast. That way it'll be at the top, but you need to use sudo, because anytime you're messing with devices, you want to make sure and actually let me run ls block again, but you want to use sudo, because anytime you're messing with devices or making changes to devices, the system is going to require you to be root. So let's start with sudo and then adm. And then what we want to do is create a RAID. And so it's /creates. And then we want to use verbose. That way it'll spit out as much information as possible. And then now you want to name your RAID, because you need to name it something. And you want to put it under your device directory. That's where it's going to go. So device and then D0. I'm going to just name it MD0. That's fine. And then what you want to do is set your RAID level. So like I said, we're going to do a RAID 1 first. So let's go tac level equals 1, because we want a RAID 1. And then we have to set the amount of devices. So let's go tac and then RAID dash devices. You have to just let it know how many devices you're going to be using. So that equals 2. We're going to use 2 devices, which is 2 of our hard drives. Like I said, I want to use these first 2. So VDB and VDC. So let's start off with the first one. So VDB, and then we want to create at our other device there. So dev, and it'll always start with dev, just so you guys know. And then VDC, and this will go down and create our RAID. So let's go down and press enter. Boom, it'll go through, continue creating RAID. And basically the size set, that's basically the size. It will be 20 gigabytes, because both of these drives are 20 gigabytes. And what it's going to do is use one drive and then copy everything to the other drive. That's essentially how it works. All you have to do is press enter, and we want to create the RAID. So let's type Y, press enter, boom, and there we go. It's very quick, especially when it's nothing on the drives. You know what I'm saying? When you're first setting this up, it's very simple. Now, let me show you guys another command. This will give you the details of the RAID and basically how it's set up. So if you ever need to go back in and verify what you created, you can just type the mdadm command and then type detail and then the actual RAID, because you got multiple RAIDs on one server setup. You can have multiple ones, and you can specify which one you want to look at. So dev and then MD0. So let's go and press enter. That'll give us the details of this RAID. And so version 1.2 is a RAID 1. That's the RAID level, the array size. So 20 gigabytes, 19 gigabytes. You lose a little bit when it sets it up. RAID devices 2, total devices 2. Super block is persistent and active devices. And right now the states is clean and resyncing. So we're good to go. 18% complete. So it is resyncing. So 18% complete. It'll keep going through and sync everything, just so you guys know. But boom, there you go. That's our RAID information. Now what you want to do is actually create a file system on this RAID, because right now you can't write anything to it. It's just a RAID created, but it's no file system on it, so you can't write any files to it. We can do it while it's still syncing. Don't worry about it. This is how you create a file system from the command line, and that's versus the way you create the file system using the installer. You can specify what file system you want to use by using the make file system. And all you have to do is specify that file system. So we're going to use ext4. It's the easiest and it's the simplest to set up. So you can use the ext4. You can use whatever you want. There is a BetterFS, so that's BFS. You got FAT, you got ext3, MS-DOS, VFAT, XFS, NTFS. So you can set it up however you want to using whatever file system that you need. But anyway, we're going to set up ext4 because it's only going to be accessible from my this Linux computer, which I'm not going to even use it, MD05. So we want to make that a file system of ext4 on our RAID. So let's go down and press enter, and it'll take a couple minutes. It'll go through and create that a file system for us. As you can see, it contains a ext4 file system, but we could press Y, and I just want to show you guys the process of actually setting it up. So you won't actually see this. You won't see the dev MD0 contains a ext4 file system, and boom, as you can see, it's the file system UID, which we'll need that a little later. And then also it just basically creates all the blocks, allocate group tables, writing inode tables, all that good stuff, to journaling, create journaling, and writing super blocks and file system accounting information. So now we have a file system. So let me go down and show you guys how to mount it. And it's just like mounting any other file system that I've showed you in the past. First off, what you need to do is create a directory. So let's go sudo make directory. And what I always use is our mount directory in a home directory or the root of the file system. There is a directory called mount, so MNT. And I always create a folder under here. So this will be our RAID 1. And so I'm gonna create a folder called RAID 1. And let's go down and press enter. And I use -P just in case mount is there. I know it is. I just have a habit of hitting -P in case I'm creating folders within folders. But anyway, I don't want to get sidetracked. So now let's go down and mount our RAID. So let's go sudo mount, and then we have to specify our device, which is that MD0, which we created, and we want to mount it to that location that we just created. So the RAID 1, and let's go down and press enter there. Now, if we go, let's say we want to create a file or something on there, we could type touch. And maybe it may not work because of permissions. So we may have to go in and modify permissions, or I'll just run sudo. But let's create a file called test1 and press enter. And yeah, we don't have permissions. So let's use sudo. I don't want to go in and mess with the permissions and make the video even longer. So we can go ls-la of our mount directory, and then we have a test file. So let's press enter. And then we didn't even have to type test. I just wanted to see what was in there with. You type it like that. So there you go. You can see, and as you can see, it's owned by root. So we will have to modify this file system to allow your account, or however you want to set this up based on the permissions that you need in order to use this drive. It could be a shared drive or something like that that you want to use this for. So you set up Samba and point it to this location, and you're good to go. Now, let me quickly show you guys how to add it to your FS tab. And your FS tab is under ETC and then FS tab, and press enter. We can cat it out. As you can see, this is where all your drive information is for the operating system. And so what we need to do is add another line in here. And so I'm gonna just type it out in one command just to make it simple. And we'll use the T command. That way we can get it in there from the command line. And I don't think I've showed you guys the T command too much. So all you have to do is type echo, and then we have to specify our drive, the information we want to write out to this file. We start with our drive, which is, or our device name. So device, and then MD0. And then now we have to specify our directory. And what this is for is, so once you reboot the system, it will mount this drive automatically for us. And then you have to specify the file system. So it's ext4, and then defaults, and then no fail, and then 0. And then you want to put that in a single quote. So that is basically what it's going to write to our FS tab. And what we have to do is pipe that into sudo T. And T is a command that allows you to write things out to a file. At the end, it'll append it. So if you use the -A command, so -A for append, and we want to append our FS tab. Let me copy it right fast. I'm gonna copy this out. That way I already have it, and That way I could drop it in. So let's go down and press enter. As you can see, it added it. That's what you'll see, the echo out of what you actually put there. So let's go sudo nano etc fs tab. You can add notes in there. A lot of times this is what I do on my production systems. I'll add notes there and I'll just say RAID 1 mount or something like that. RAID 1 mount, and we can space it out, clean up this file a little bit. But this kind of breaks down the format of how you want to put it in your FS tab. Go down and add another space in there. That way it's cleaned up a little bit. Go down, save it, and press Y, press enter, good to go. And so now we got our RAID up and running, and then also it will auto mount. So right now it's mounted. If we reboot the system, which I'll run through and do that right fast, and you actually won't see it go down and go up. So let's type sudo reboot now, press enter, it'll reboot, and then we can log back in a second. And just so you know, if you mess that up in the FS tab, it won't boot and you have to go back into it and fix it. This will be the verification right here. It booted all the way up by me being able to log into it. So yeah, it allowed me to log into it. And then if we, let's say ls that drive right fast, and that's that mount directory, and then our RAID drive, let's go on and press enter, and let's go ls-la. So let's go ls block again. I just want to see if that RAID still is running, and so what it looks like, I think I ran into this before. You can't use the device name that you create for the RAID. It's best to use that UUID. So if you scroll back up, you'll see that we got the UD when we created the RAID. So if we scroll up, I just want to show you guys, this is the file system UUID. And so you want to copy that and put that into our FS tab. So let's go and modify that right fast, because for some reason it didn't add the RAID back. Let me go down and add this right fast. So let's go sudo etc, and I'll leave this in the video, but let's go sudo and then etc and then our fs tab direct file. Press enter. Let's go up in here and modify our fs tab file. And I totally forgot to add a text editor, so nano or whichever one you want to use. Then we can go down in here and let's just copy what was used for the other disk. So let's copy that, and then what I have is a text file where I added so we can add it all back in one line. And I know you guys can't see that, but we'll go here and we'll delete this portion, and then let's add our UUID, and this should work. So it'll mount the UUID to our RAID location, and it may not work. I'm not 100% sure because I may have to rebuild the RAID. I can't remember. It's been a long time since I've actually used this command, but I'm gonna leave this stuff in here so you guys can see all of this. And that way, if you run into this issue, you know what I'm saying, then you'll know how to fix it. All right, so let's go on and try to log back in. I gave it a couple seconds and boom. Yeah, like I said, it won't boot if it cannot find those drives. So let's run that ls-la of the mount directory and then that RAID 1. Press enter, and we'll see that test file back there. So we're good to go. So if you use the UUID, it'll work out a whole lot better. So I'm glad I figured that out so I could show you guys it's best to actually use the UUID. Now let's quickly show you guys how to break down the RAID. First thing you want to do is unmount the file system. So sudo and then umount, and then we need to specify our location, which is mount, and then RAID 1. And all you have to do is hit tab and it will tab it out. It'll find it for you unless you have multiple mount locations under mount, which is how I have things set up. But let's go down and press enter and type in our sudo account password, and that will unmount that drive. And now we have to run the sudo mdm and then tac stop. We want to stop this RAID, and this will basically break it up for us. It was MD0, or it's 127 now. So let's type 127. That's why you need to use that UUID. I'm not sure why it changed it. I think it just has to do with the UUID not being in that FS tab, and always find it now. It's just you need to figure out what it is if you want to stop it or remove it. So let's go down and press enter. That will stop that RAID array. And there is a command. I remember running this before in the past, remove. So let's actually see if it actually works, still works. Remove, and yeah, it says error opening dev MD127, no such file or directory. And then one other thing you can do is you can zero out the blocks. You can type sudo mdadm, and then what is it? tac 0, tac super block. And then we need to specify our device. So it's dev dev, and then it was VDB, I believe, and press enter. And then we can run the same thing for C. Boom, we're good to go. And so that clears out those drives for us. And we can type ls block again, boom, and we'll see those drives are there. That RAID is gone, and we're good to go. We basically broke up that RAID for us. All right, so now that we got all our drives back available to us, I'm gonna show you guys how to set up a RAID 5. And I'm gonna do it a quick way. I'm gonna just copy all the commands. I already have them written out, but we're gonna just run through and do it. And I'll just break it down for you with sudo mdadm create verbose, our device name that we wanna create for the RAID, so md0, then the level, which is we wanna do a RAID 5. So the level is 5. And then our RAID devices. For RAID 5, you need at least 3 devices in order to create that RAID 5. And then we have our device name. So dev, VDB, C, and D, which is our 20 gigabyte drives. One other thing I didn't mention, the drives need to be the same size or greater than the size of the smallest drive. So let's say you could take a 20 gigabyte drive and then a 40 gigabyte drive and then another 20 gigabyte drive. The smallest drive is 20. So that 40, you're gonna lose 40 gigabytes of space, because what it's gonna do is set up the RAID using 20, because it's all based on the smallest drive. So let's go down and create our RAID 5. So it'll go through and create our device for us, or our RAID for us, and it will name it that dev md0. Now let's go down and verify our RAID. So let's type md and then tag detail, and then our device name, which we created, which is that md0, and press enter. Boom, that'll give us all the information about it, and we'll go through it real quick. But the RAID level is RAID 5, 3 devices total. Superblock is persistent, clean. It says degraded and recovering. That's because it's building out the actual RAID for us. A lot of times with this thing, with this type of RAID, it takes a little while to create it, depending on how big it is. If you got terabyte drives, it may take a couple of hours. I only got a couple gigs, so it's resyncing, 18 complete. Let's actually run that details again and see how further along it is. Yeah, it's 31% complete. So I'll let it actually go to the end, and I'll cut this part out of the video while we wait till it actually finishes. And that's mainly because I don't want to create the file system on top of the RAID that's still syncing. All right, so the RAID is complete. As you can see right here, the state is clean. Active devices 3, so we're good to go. No failed devices, spare devices 0, and they're all active. Like I stated earlier, RAID 5, it'll stripe the data across all the disks, but also store like parity information. That way, if one of these drives go down, you can hot swap it out or put a new drive in with the same size or greater, and that'll take its place, and then it'll gather the information and recreate the RAID with the new drive and get your files back. So that's what it's all about. It's all about redundancy, as well as the performance that you get from actually running a RAID. All right, so let's go ahead and create our file system right fast. So make file system.ext, and we need to specify our RAID. So that's dev and then D0, and press enter, and it'll say that it already has a file system on it. I think, yeah, ext4 file system, because of those other 2 drives we worked on. So proceed anyway. Let's press enter, and then it'll go through and write out the blocks and all that stuff, all the information for the drive. And also spit out our ID, which is what we're going to use in our FS tab. So let's go down and copy that out, and then we'll put this in the format that it's supposed to be, so we can go down and copy it in there right fast. And then also, if you have 2 RAIDs on here, like we had that RAID 1 and we got a RAID 5. So let's say we got 5 drives. 2 of those drives are set up in a RAID 1, and 3 of the other drives are set up in a RAID 5. We need to have a different mount location. So let's go down and create another drive location or mount location. So make dir-p, and then we can put it under that mount directory, and then let's name it RAID 5. And let's go down and press enter. That'll create that drive for us. So that'll mount that drive md0, and we want to specify our new drive location, which is mounts, or our location we want to mount it to, and that's RAID 5. And let's go and press enter, and we're good to go. So we got our RAID 5 file system created, as well as mounted to our operating system so we can use it. And if we ls-la that directory, you won't see anything in there. Obviously it wiped those drives to create the new RAID 5, but yeah, there's nothing on there. And then you can run a sudo touch, and then within the RAID 5 directory, let's go to test.txt, press enter, and then we can ls that directory again. We'll see that test file that we created on our RAID. And now let's go sudo nano etc fs tab and press enter. And what we want to do is basically remove this one. We're not going to remove the whole thing. I'm gonna just delete that UUID and add the correct one. And let's copy right fast, and let's go back over here and delete out the beginning, and so we could put the new ID in there. And then we also want to change our mount location, so make sure you do that as well. Let's go back here, and we want to mount it to our RAID 5 location, and it's ext4, and all this is defaults. So we can go down and save this, press Y for yes. And I'm curious to see if it's gonna change the name of that device for the RAID when we reboot. So I'm gonna reboot again. I really wanna show you guys this, how to actually do all of this, because this is something I've never done on my channel. I've never showed you guys how to set up a RAID. I think I talked about it, that there were software RAIDs programs out here for Linux, but I never actually went through and set one up for you guys on a video. So our system should be back up, and like I said, this will let us know if that RAID mounts and everything, if it worked out good. And let's just run a ls block and press enter. And then, yeah, there we go. So you can see our drives, and it's crazy. It changes it to MD127. I'm not sure why it's doing that. Let's say I want to name it MD0. Why it won't let me name it MD0? But it doesn't matter because we have a UUID. So whatever it changes to, as far as the device name when it reboots, it'll always mount those drives back there. And then one thing I wanted to point out to you guys, yes, it's 20 gigabytes for each drive in this RAID, but you lose 33.3333% of the drives because of parity. And just show you guys, the RAID itself is only 40 gigabytes. So let me show you guys that. I don't think I looked at that when we ran the sudo mdadm command .tac details, and make sure it's detailed. And then we want to specify that dev, and then we had to use that new device name. So MD127, press enter and type in our sudo password, and boom, you'll see in here the size of the array. So it's only 40 gigabytes, about 42.91 gigabytes. And then this right here is the available size. So just so you guys know, you lose space from the actual drives that are set up. So this is like the benefit of it, because it's a very slim chance you have two drives go down at a single time. That will completely destroy the RAID, but you will lose some space, just so you guys know, by doing this. All right, so that's it for today's video on setting up RAID on Ubuntu server. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. RAID configurations can really step up your server game, providing that extra layer of security and performance. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell so you never miss any updates. Also, drop a comment down below if you have any questions or if there's a specific topic you want me to cover next. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and of course, keep it techy.